Welcome into Locked On 76ers. My name is Marc Farzetta. That right there is Keith Pompey. We got so much to get into, including the New York Knicks moving on from Tom Thibodeau. Are the 76ers thinking of moving on possibly from Nick Nurse? Is his seat hot enough? We'll talk about that in the upcoming NBA draft as well on this edition of Locked On 76ers podcast.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome once again to Locked On 76ers Daily. Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Keith, the New York Knicks have moved on from Tom Thibodeau. 5 seasons, playoff appearances, 2 wins shy of an NBA Finals appearance, and also last year beating the 76ers in the playoffs as well. Were you surprised, first and foremost, by this move? And do you think it'll affect the 76ers at all with how they're evaluating Nick Nurse in the upcoming season?
You know what? I was and I wasn't surprised. And the reason why I'm saying both, the reason why is because, as soon as, if you go to social media or if you read articles or you see television, the whole nine, all you heard was Tibbs has to go. Tibbs can't coach. Come on now. We'll look at your rotations, this and that, right? But then you look at it and you say to yourself, come on, people, last time you won a championship was 53 years ago. This was the first time you made it to the conference finals in 25 seasons, and your team was trash before the guy came there. And then he turns it around, right? And you're thinking okay, this is great. So that's the thing that makes you a little bit surprised. But in regards to Nick Nurse, I'm telling you, it's as soon as that happened, I'm getting text messages saying, when is he going to go? And you're saying to people they can't fire him, y'all. They just can't. And they're like, why not? Let him go. All these other coaches, like Mike Malone was fired, all these other coaches who had contending teams. And here's the thing, it's not going to impact Nick Nurse because, let's be honest, what the Sixers did is they gave Joel Embiid a lot of money. They gave Paul George a lot of money. And until these guys play a lot, the coach and the general manager are going to be saved because all they can go is, look, we can coach, but we never got an opportunity to show what we could do. So with that being said, I don't think they're going anywhere, right now, at least until after next season, because, Joel was hurt. Tibbs had a healthy team. Maybe they got hurt in the playoffs, but for the most part, it's kind of I think they feel like, Tibbs, we got to move on for you to get to a championship. Nick Nurse, we have to figure out what you can do with a healthy squad before we can fully evaluate you.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, one of my favorite quotes, probably my favorite quote from the Brett Brown era, was one of the last questions he was ever asked when they were in the bubble and they got bounced out against the Celtics. And they asked him, and it might have been you, Keith, that asked the question, do you feel like you got a fair shot with a team that was fully healthy and complete? And his quote was very simple. It was 2 letters. No. That was his answer to that question. And I feel it's very similar right now to Nick Nurse. Yes, after Doc Rivers, he was brought in to be the next level coach, the guy to make it all work together. Well, in 1 year, you went to the playoffs. You won 47 games. Joel Embiid was banged up in the playoffs. You still won 47 games. You got bounced out in the first round. It is what it is, unfortunately, against the Knicks. Then you look at it from the other perspective of this year, you barely had the team together. And look, I know some people just might brush it off as an excuse, but when you literally don't have your 3 best players for the vast majority of the season and you go into tank mode, that to me is not a fair evaluation of a head coach. So I think he will get that opportunity of, and I hate to put this on Sixers fans, but at least one more year, this year and maybe next, of evaluating what he has around him if this team can actually stay healthy. Is that a fair way to look at it?
It's an accurate way of looking at it. I think that's the only way of looking at it. And when you look at it, we talk about when the time he came here, I mean, it's been drama since he was hired. I mean, you think about it. He gets hired, and then a month later, that's when James Harden says, I will never play for Daryl Morey again. Daryl Morey is a liar, right?
He's a
He comes up
liar.
with that, right? So then, like, you have the whole preseason, which was kind of like a joke. Like, he doesn't show up for media day. He misses the first day of training camp. He doesn't, like, practice with the team when he's here. And then all of a sudden, they make a trade, and the Sixers have the best record in the league. I forget what it was, either like 9-1 or 10-1, but they were rolling. And then you think, okay, this team is the real deal. This is the real deal. Embiid gets hurt. They start making trades. The team got worse. Then this season comes, and we know what a major problem they had this year. It was a dismal season. So yeah, I mean, Nick Nurse, you have to give him a chance to see what he can do. But I will tell you this, though. Coaches nowadays, this is a tough job because, I mean, you look at this guy, he's probably been the best coach the Knicks had in probably 20 years, right? And he gets axed. Mike Malone leads Denver to a championship. 2 years later, he's gone when they had the second or third best record in the Western Conference. And then you look at the Memphis Grizzlies. They were playing well too, and they got rid of their coach. And then a couple years before that, you see what happens with the Milwaukee Bucks, where that coach, was rolling, and they got rid of Adrian Griffin. So, it's kind of like, it's not about just wins and losses anymore. It's about, can you win us a championship? And if we think you can't, you're out of here.
When I saw the thing on Thibodeau, I thought, wait, how long has he been there? He's been there for at least 3-4 years. I was like, 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, I thought 5 years, that's like 40 years at the same company in any other walk of life. That's a long tenure to be the Knicks head coach. But I'll ask you this about Nick Nurse as it relates to him, because this is my question about Nick Nurse. Look, I think Pascal Siakam did a lot on his own to get better and be the player that he is. And I know we talked about that in our last episode. But how much can you trust Nick Nurse? What have you seen from Nick Nurse, if anything, to show that he can help a guy like Tyrese Maxey continue to develop, Jared McCain develop? Also, maybe if this team is healthy, find a way for all of this to fit together. And then also, whoever the Sixers take at number 3, still maybe, most likely, Ace Bailey. We'll get to that a little bit more later. How much can you trust Nick Nurse to develop this team? Because you talk about what's coming for the future for the Philadelphia 76ers. And Nick Nurse, if we don't see the Sixers putting him on the hot seat at all, even the lukewarm seat, where do you rank him, or how do you look at him in terms of developing young talent for the future of the 76ers?
In regards to his development, let's talk about, and you mentioned Tyrese Maxey. We talked about Tyrese Maxey last year. I think the biggest growth that Tyrese Maxey had was under Nick Nurse the first season. Let's face it, no one thought Tyrese Maxey could be a point guard, right? I thought he was crazy when the coach said, I'm giving him the ball. Well, Tyrese Maxey had an all-star season. And the thing about it is, what he did is, he always said, I don't think Tyrese Maxey is being aggressive enough. I don't think he's shooting the ball enough. And you're like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, you got other guys. Well, what happened? Tyrese, he stepped into a different level. He became, under Nick Nurse, he was the league's most improved player, right? He was a one-time All-Star. Then you look at Joel Embiid. Yes, Joel Embiid did get the MVP under Doc Rivers, right? But under Nick Nurse, he was putting up video game numbers. I mean, this guy was scoring more points than minutes played. Now, in regards to developing players, I think that when you have a guy like Rico Hines, who's regarded as one of the NBA's most renowned development coaches, and what they do is they have a priority in that to where they have him sitting on the front of the bench. But he's a development coach, but he's sitting on the front of the bench. So, again, I think that when you talk of how Joel played when healthy, and you talk about what Maxey did, that should give you confidence. Now, there are going to be some people that criticize Nick for some of the things that he does in games. But when that team was healthy, before Joel Embiid got hurt 2 seasons ago, they looked like a team that was good enough to contend for a championship.
And that was my biggest question about Nick Nurse taking over as the head coach 2 years ago. It was, look, I understand what the Sixers have right now, and I consider it to be the greatest if in all of sports, not just basketball. If Joel Embiid stays healthy, what this team can accomplish. So if Nick Nurse takes this over and gets a healthy team and young players, can he develop them for the future? Because, look, the way we look at it is it's not likely that Joel Embiid not only is 100% healthy, but also returns to MVP caliber play. It's unlikely that Paul George gets back to the same level of play that he played with his last year as a Clipper, for instance. We hope that it happens, but it's one of those things, again, that we're not betting on for the Sixers. So what does the future look like? And can Nick Nurse be that guy to kind of bridge that gap from the changing of the guard, from Joel Embiid to more so Tyrese Maxey?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Now, Nick Nurse is a coach, right? He is a coach, and you expect him to elevate the team, but he's not Jesus, right? He's not Jesus. He's not going to make water. He's not going to turn water into wine, right? So, like, right. It's kind of like it's one of those things. Like, if Joel Embiid has a bum knee still, and if Paul George can't get over the prime, like, or can't get over, what he did last season, the struggles he had. Oh man, like, how much are you going to really blame the coach? Right. When you have a guy who's shot, who some people think is shot, and another guy who's old. So to me, it's kind of like, that's where it comes down to the front office has to help him. Now he can do some crazy things, and he can, maybe win a couple games by doing something outside the box, right? But you got to understand, he did that stuff in Toronto, but he had a way better roster. Like, when you look back at that championship roster he had, you're like, wow, they had Pascal Siakam, they had OG, they had all these Danny Green in his prime, so they had Marc Gasol. So now you look at the Sixers roster and you're saying to yourself, like, how do we expect him to turn water into wine with this squad? It's not going to happen. So that's where, it's up to the general manager.
Yeah, and one of the things I also take away from that, Kawhi Leonard, obviously, that was the first time, and I think the only time in my life anyone got Jordan comparisons, and everybody agreed. There was not one person that was going, well, that's a hot take. You can't say that about somebody else. Jordan is Jordan. It's like, oh, no, yeah, he's definitely playing like Michael Jordan. Defensively, offensively, he's playing pretty great. Yeah. When we come back, speaking of the Sixers' future, two national publications, Keith, have the Sixers potentially bailing on Ace Bailey. We'll get to that when we return. This is Locked On 76ers podcast on the Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. And now I'm going to tell you about BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. And let's talk about something that doesn't get talked about enough: men's mental health. There's the pressure of always trying to keep it together, to be, performing, to provide, and to never show weakness. But the truth is, real strength comes from opening up and taking care of your mental well-being. That's where BetterHelp comes in. Every year, 6 million men in the United States experience depression, and many go undiagnosed. But talking to someone, a friend, or even a therapist, can make a huge difference. And therapy, isn't just for crisis moments. With over 35,000 licensed professionals, BetterHelp makes it easy to find a therapist who understands you. You can connect from anywhere, switch therapists at any time, and fit sessions into your schedule with just one click. As the largest online provider of therapy in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. You could talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners and viewers get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's better, BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Between now and this month's NBA draft, there's going to be a lot of the clickbait. There's going to be a lot of, oh, no, we're hearing that the Sixers aren't interested, blah, blah. They're going to go in another direction. SB Nation has the Sixers now more interested in VJ Edgecombe, and right now SI.com has the Sixers more interested in Trey Johnson. What do you make of the speculation that's out there right now with the Sixers potentially moving away from Ace Bailey?
I mean, kind of like what you said in the beginning. Right now there's a lot of misinformation out there, and and I shouldn't say misinformation, is you just don't know what to believe right now. Like, it could be true, right? It could be true. But at this particular time, it's like when a lot of rumors happen. Now, the one thing that I will say is if the 76ers are going to do a thorough job, you have to do your due diligence, right? So you have to have these meetings and say, okay, right now we're looking at it as if Ace Bailey is our guy, but we have to investigate reasons on why we shouldn't take these other guys. And how will they help us out? So I think they are throwing that scenario around. And even when Daryl Morey came out and said, hey, we're going to keep the pick, we're going to do this. Dude, you don't know what you're going to do a month out. Like, things could change, right? Things can change. But also, I tell you what, by coming out and saying you're going to keep the pick, all you're doing is raising the value of that pick. If you want to trade it, somebody's going to give you more because they think like, oh, I got to get it from them. I'll give up, like, instead of just giving up 1 first-round pick, I'll give up 2 first-round picks and said player. I'm just using that as an example. So at this particular time, it's one of those things where everything's on the table. And when we look at these two guys, what have people said about them? They said that Ace Bailey has a bigger upside, but these other two guys may be ready to squeeze in right now, right? But the fact that they're going out and if they do go out and make that trade or make a trade and trade down and get one of these dudes or get them at number 3, it makes me wonder on how confident are they in regards to bringing back Quentin Grimes? Because if not, it's going to be a log jam. But I'm here to tell you, there's a lot of information that goes out there right now, rumor mills, and people having opinions that really don't happen or don't pan out.
All right, to set the record straight then, do you believe that Ace Bailey is right now the top priority of the 76ers coming into this draft, but they're just trying to turn over every stone?
I do. I mean, but again, like the thing is, I think that initially he probably, because everybody talked about a 3-person draft, right? And let's keep it 100. Like, no matter who the 76ers draft, no matter who they draft, they're going to say, that guy was number 1 on our board. Number 1 on our board. They always say that, believe it if true or not. But I do think that, yes, Ace Bailey was number 1. But I think that when you do your due diligence and you interview the person, it comes down to, you feel like, is this person going to be a right fit for the guys that we have on the roster, right? What about, how do we feel about his work ethic? All these other things. Because when you go and make that 3rd pick, you have to get all those things right. And I think that, I think that Ace Bailey, yes, is their guy, if they believe it or not. But he has to prove them right in everything that he does.
Yeah, I would hope that any general manager of any team you root for, has not necessarily their mind made up, but they have their number 1 guy, they have their top priority, whatever. And then it's like telling the guys around you, your assistant GMs and whatnot, your Elton Brands, your Jameer Nelsons of the world, that you're like, all right, tell me why I'm wrong. Why are we wrong in considering Ace Bailey to be our number 1 guy at number 3? I would hope that'd be the case, because that means you are turning over every stone. You're absolutely checking every box when it comes to doing your due diligence. Now, use the phrase, right now. I don't feel like I'm alone in this. I feel like a lot of 76ers fans feel along the same way. It's not so much right now to me isn't exciting. It's not exciting. What's exciting for me is the not too distant future of the 76ers as you develop younger talent on this team. So when you talk about NBA ready players right now, whether or not VJ Edgecombe is the number 1, the most ready, or Trey Johnson is the most ready, that's for right now. I am not that interested in right now. I'm interested in who's got the highest ceiling. And if that happens to be a fit, as I believe it would be with Bailey right now with this roster, that to me is the most alluring prospect to be looking at in this draft.
Yeah. I mean, and to me too, because you gotta you have to get this thing right. And let's face it. I mean, we're talking about, I mean, Nick Nurse trying to make wine out of water, right?
Yes.
Like, so if you bring someone in, and if Joel Embiid and Paul George don't improve, no matter what, you're rebuilding. Mm-hmm. You're going to have that young player, and you're going to have Tyrese Maxey, and you're going to have Jared McCain that we know of, right? They're going to be the guys that you have. So if you're trying to win a championship at one particular point in time, you have to make sure that this person is going to be someone, not just a fit, but someone, not just a fit for this current roster, but someone that you can build with and help you win a championship, because you're not going to go far if Joel Embiid and Paul George, struggle. You're just not. You don't have the resources. So, you know what? You got to get this thing right. You do. You really do. And here's the thing. Like, you hear these executives, and they all said it. Like, one guy told me that Ace Bailey has huge bust potential if he's not careful. Another guy says he really loves Ace Bailey's game, but the thing is, he doesn't feel like he's ready to help you win a championship now. And then the third scout says, hey, after the first two, I think number 3 through 5 or 3 through 6 are all comparable. So you have to wonder, what are the Sixers saying about this after, doing all these evaluations? So, can we trade back and possibly get a guy that we think is comparable to him in the long run, who's a harder worker? And then in addition to that, we can get the 21st pick. That's saying if it's Utah, you can get number 5 and number 21. And then with number 21, we can get another first rounder to help add depth to the team. So those are things that, they have to ask themselves right now, but they got to get it right, dude. You have to get it right.
The thing that could be said, and then we'll move on for this, but the thing that could be said the day after the draft or the night, whenever Daryl Morey would address the media, the thing that could be said that would piss me off the most, Keith, is we felt like right now this was the perfect fit for our team to win right now. Like, nope, we're out. I'm out. This is going to be another long wait. We're going back to purgatory. This is going to be terrible. We're really heavy on the biblical references today, by the way.
Yeah, I know, right?
Now, we talked about Tom Thibodeau getting fired, relieved of his duties there from the New York Knicks. I believe there's a Philadelphia name, and it's not even worth teasing because everyone's going to get it, but I'm going to tease it anyway. There's a Philadelphia name that has been linked to the NBA for years, and nothing's come of it. It could happen this time around. We'll talk about who could be replacing Tom Thibodeau with the Knicks when we return after this. This is Locked On 76ers podcast. And now it's time to tell you about Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber, maybe another service provider. If that first person didn't answer, did you sit there and wait? I don't think so. You probably moved on. And that's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Open Phone lets me manage business calls as well as text messages from a single app. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. Open Phone is offering our listeners and our viewers 20% off the first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba. If you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone. No missed calls, no missed customers. I have said for a long time, Keith, that I don't buy it for a second that Jay Wright's never going to coach in the NBA. If there was a situation, so I think he is going to coach in the NBA. I don't believe there's a better situation for Jay Wright to get his feet wet, at least at the NBA, than coaching the guys that still love him, coaching the guys that he won with at the college level, than the New York Knicks. I know there's other names being mentioned, but would this not be the perfect scenario? And what's the likelihood you would put on it for Jay Wright to be the next coach of the New York Knicks?
See, I disagree with you in regards to him coaching in the NBA.
You don't think it ever happens?
Well, see, here's the thing. I think there's only one job that he could take, and that would be the Knicks job. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because, because it's the Nova Knicks, right? And because the best player on the team, is a guy who has so much admiration for him and respect for him to whereas it would work. I don't know aside from that, and even with the other players on the team, and I'm not talking about Mikal Bridges or Josh Hart. I'm talking about other players on the team. I don't know if Jay could deal with that. And what I mean by this is the NBA game, like when you think of the NBA game is about players and about player empowerment, where you hear, and we go back to Mike Malone. Mike Malone comes down hard and has a in your face meeting with the players. And then next thing you know, he gets fired a couple days later. Now, of course, they say him and the general manager didn't get along, but you hear that maybe the players were tiring of his voice, right? You hear other situations where players just don't like coaches and they leave. When Jay Wright was at Villanova and up until the era of the NIL deals, basketball coaches were the face of the program. If they didn't like you, if you didn't like it, you just had to deal with it. You say, I'm going to try to transfer, but at the same time, well, where are you going to go? They got to release you, or you're going to sit out a year. I just think that, the way that Jay Wright is, and Jay Wright is a great coach, but I don't know if he wants to sit there and say, well, I can't say this to this player, or if I do say something, then I may get reprimanded by the general manager, or the player is basically going to tune me out. And let's face it, the player's making way more money than I am. So if somebody's going to be expendable, it's me. And I don't know if you're a successful college basketball coach like he is, a Hall of Famer, that you want to put up with the BS. That's just me. I don't know if he's willing to do that. I mean, he could collect that money on TV, man. Wear those nice suits, continue, and his life is good.
Hey, look, he's a two-time national champion. As you mentioned, he's a Hall of Famer. There's not much left for him at the NBA level. And you mentioned NIL. Let's not act like the NIL hasn't affected college basketball as far as the players running the show more so than ever at the college level, more so than the coaches have. So I think you're going to get that in both college and the NBA more than ever, obviously. Yeah. But also there's that itch of, can you win at the highest level? I think that itch exists for Jay Wright, and I think that this would be a perfect marriage, because if you're going to try to get your feet wet at the NBA level, then you want to know you have guys there already. Like a lot of coaches, they might bring in a guy to help get their message across. Kyle Lowry with Nick Nurse, just as an example. You already have two guys there in New York that you've had success with at the college level, that listen to you, that respect you, and could also help drive your point home to those players that might not want to listen. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not betting that Jay Wright gets this job, but I believe that if he wanted the job, this is the job he would take. I think if this isn't a job that he goes after, then I think he is going to stay in the broadcast booth for quite some time. Maybe he does return to the college level at some point. But I don't think it's crazy to think that he could end up as the New York Knicks' next head coach.
Yeah, and me, I don't think he'll end up there. But again, if there was one job that you think long and hard about, it would have to be this one, because it's set up perfectly if you wanted to do it, just because the star player is Jalen Brunson, right? And, and then you have Mikal, and then you have this. And, it's a great situation. But, again, we're talking about in the NBA, you have 17 guys on the roster. So, that's only 3. That's 3 of them. I mean, now granted, Brunson is the biggest player, arguably the biggest name in New York right now. You know what I mean? Like, if we want to be real. But at the same time, I just don't know. Because I heard when he was with USA Basketball, certain things were eye-opening that he saw, right? You know what I mean? And I just don't know, him being a disciplinarian coach, a guy that keeps it straight, you know what I mean, this and that, if he wants to deal with that. Now, granted, you can go there and you can make $50 million and get fired in year 2. and they still owe you $50 million. So life is good. But
where's the loss? There's other than actual losing, there's no loss. You know what I mean? It's a win-win. Keith, I know you got a great article coming out in not too distant future here with Inquirer.com. We'll be talking about it tomorrow for game 1 of the NBA Finals. We'll also be giving our predictions on how this NBA Finals is going to go, as well as we'll continue to track the Ace Bailey news and all draft news as it pertains to the number 3 overall pick and your 76ers. Keith, always a pleasure. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to Locked On 76ers YouTube channel, all Locked On platforms. Make sure you guys are following Keith on all social media platforms as well when it comes to the Inquirer.com. And I do also want to say thank you very much for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. And for your second listen, how about Locked On NBA Big Board Show, where NBA draft expert Rafael Barlow reacts to every workout, interview, and rumor leading up to the NBA draft. Find Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Keith, always a pleasure, brother.
Always a pleasure, my man.
All right, back with you guys tomorrow for more Locked On 76ers.